So in this piecewise function, we have two situations. We have, if you read it, we have a summer job that pays time and a half for overtime. Regular time is if you work more than 40 hours a week. And if you work up to 40 hours a week, you make $7 an hour. All right, so let's take a look at this whole $7 an hour. So normally your pay is equal to, and it's going to be 7 times X or 7 times H, and that represents your hourly wage from 0 to 40 hours. Now, this is called our domain. And we need to represent this in a different way. We have to use mathematical notation to show this. So if H's are unknown, the fact that hours can be less than or equal to 40, up to 40, and greater than or equal to 0. Now you've got to get used to using that kind of notation for your domain for situations in the graphing topic. Now, the second one's a bit trickier because after that point, after 40 hours, we're making 1.5 times your normal hourly wage. Well, 1.5 times 7 is 10.5. So our pay is now going to be 10.5 times something, but it's not just times your hours, because if my hours is, say, if I work 45 hours, well, I'm working 40 hours of that at $7 an hour, and then 5 more hours at time and a half, 10.5. So it's not going to be good enough to do that. So the idea here is we're going to have 10.5. Now, how do we show that if we're at, say, 45 hours of work, we're not going to get 45 times time and a half. We're only going to get the 5 hours. So what we do is we take the number of hours and minus the 40. So that tells me that I'm going to get, just in this situation, 5 hours of overtime. All right? That's the next part. Now, that's not going to finish it. Okay, so let's resume this. Here's the graph of P is equal to 7 times H. This is the graph here. And I basically just use the point 0 and 40 and 280. Now, why 40 and 280? Because when I stick, this is the where the graph stops, at 40 hours. So at 40 hours right here, it stops, this particular function, and at that point it's 280, because 7 times 40 is 280. So that's the point it stops. Now, let's go back to our scenario here. If we have 45 hours that we work, 40 times 7 of that, we're going to make $280. So we're making $280 at that point. Now, let's go back to this situation of time and a half. After 40 hours, so at 45 hours, I've made the $280, and then I've gone 5 hours times the 10.5. So that's the number of hours that I'm actually getting time and a half for. So to finish off my equation, I've got to go plus 280, because that's where I start. I've made the 280 at 40 hours, up to 40 hours. Now I say I've worked 5 more hours. It's going to be 10.5 times that plus the 280, or it's going to be 10.5 H, and then you can go, you can reduce it. I think it becomes plus 140 when you simplify and expand it, and so on. Now at that point, you can again go into your calculator and use your skills with your calculator to come up with the equation for the rest of it. And I think that it ends up being a line that sort of goes somewhere like that. All right, it's not a huge deal, but if you're going to graph it, you've got to come up with the exact graph. And so I would suggest strongly at that point, either you stick some points in or use your calculator to come up exactly where that line is going to go, and you can get some points from your table and work from there. Now, just to finish this off, here is the first equation with its domain, the second equation with its domain, h is going to be basically greater than 40. And so that's the domain for the second equation, h is greater than 40. You will write it like this with the notations for the domain, a little double bracket to show that this is the function, and then you will graph it onto your graph.